Okay, so 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome back to my humble channel. This is a channel where I discuss life with a physical disability, the ensuing mental health problems that go along with such disability, and how I've sort of weaved that all into my love of surfing, which I consider to be a kind of therapy and just an excuse to go abroad. Before I proceed, I'll do this at the right time now because I've forgotten in the last few videos. Quick disclaimer, I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a nurse or a doctor or a paramedic. Neither am I a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I have no medical training. So please do not take anything I say as professional medical advice. It is my opinion and my opinion only, regardless of what my source information is, even if I'm stating facts. If you are feeling unwell, ring 111. If you are feeling distinctly unwell and possibly approaching death, then dial 999 and get yourself up to A&E as fast as possible. If you feel mentally unwell, which is every bit as bad, again 111, or you can call the Samaritans, or you can go to you can call your friends and have a chat maybe. There's any number of religious establishments in your area you could probably go and talk to, depending on what your faith is, or whether you are a person of faith, or even if you're not, someone will listen to you. So just wanted to clear that one up. This is just for me to chunter on about what my experience has been like so far. So this video is a bit of a confession, and it's a bit embarrassing because I've done it again, been rude to people in the hospital. That's twice now. If you, for those of you who followed my videos from the start, will know there was an incident in the early days of this dystonia, where I was in hospital with my mum after she broke her wrist. And the way they messed us around got me so angry. I had a big shouting session in the hospital. I'm not proud of it, but at the same time, I don't feel particularly ashamed of it because the way we were treated was really bad, and I was really struggling at that point. I was struggling physically and I was struggling mentally. Now bear that in mind, that last bit that I just said, because there's going to be some parallels here. So last Friday it was Botox day. I have injections of Botox into my neck, and it happens every 3 months. That's kind of the life cycle of a Botox injection. It lasts about that long before it dissipates from your system. And I think that's the same for clinical treatments and cosmetic treatments. Botox is just a brand name. I actually use a drug called Dysport. It's still a botulinum toxin injection, just a different brand. It's an improvement on the original Botox. It has a better curve of efficacy. So Botox tends to be like that. So you tend to wait like a month for it to reach its peak. And you have a nice month, and then at the end of your second month it starts to rapidly decline in its efficacy. Dysport tends to be a much flatter curve, so it starts working after a few days, and then within a week or two it's usually at its peak, so it's much better. There's some others coming on the market as well which last 6 months, which will be brilliant. I can't wait for that to happen, because going to hospital every 3 months doesn't sound like much, but when you're trying to sort of fit it around your life and you need the injection, it can be a bit of a pain. Anyway, in the days running up to these injections, I'm always usually a bit antsy. I'm tired. I'm getting sore. I'm struggling to move. You just feel it draining out of your system. You want to lie down a lot. You're not really in the mood for much. Tend to feel a bit depressed or anxious, or somehow both. Don't know how you manage to have both at the same time, but there you go. And I just come back from Portugal, so I've kind of been pushing my body quite hard with my surfing, which is going great guns, by the way. I'm going to be doing some more in Bristol soon, and hopefully I'll have some footage for you that's actually worth watching. But we'll see. So I was getting kind of tired and antsy and anxious and just impatient, basically. And the day came, and I made my way over to the hospital, which is UCLH. It's a great neurology hospital. I made a point of getting myself referred there after doing some digging around and realising that's where I really needed to be. The previous hospital was up north, and they did the best. The quality of care was good, but the level of resourcing was so different. It was ridiculous. Here at UCLH, I've been referred to physiotherapy, and I got some physiotherapy at the hospital up north. He said, I'm not even going to bother referring you for physiotherapy because, quite frankly, they're on their knees, you won't get an appointment. So where you are in the country makes a big difference in terms of the quality of your treatment, which is bad, really. I think that's quite bad. But what can we do about it? We know the NHS is in a bit of a mess these days, but let's just push the politics to one side. So I got there. I always get there quite early, so I was probably ready. I'd probably signed in for my appointment by about 20 minutes before it was due. I can't remember what time it was now. I think it was like 3 in the afternoon or 12 in the afternoon or something like that. So I'm sat around, and the worst position for me is a sitting position. I don't know why bending the spine seems to just make the dystonia much worse. I'm better standing or lying on the floor, and at any opportunity I will do. With some interesting results. I've had the police come up to me at Euston Station once in the early days because I'd gone from here to Euston to go up north, and by the time I got to Euston, it was like this sweaty, agonised wreck. So I just made a point of finding a pillar and placing myself next to it and lying down on the floor for a while with all my bags. And the police came up and sort of had a word and said, "Who are you? And are you okay? And what's going on?" And I explained it to them in detail, and they were fine. And they said, "All right, as long as you're okay, that's the main thing." So yeah, I've done it. I've done it in airports and railway stations and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, so I took a seat in one of those horrible NHS hard-backed upright seats, which I hate sitting in, amongst other people who were waiting for their appointment. And it was a busy day. They're obviously cramming in as many as you can. And pretty efficient, calling names out fairly regularly. Eventually I got called through to a separate area with a whole other set of chairs for me to sit in. And they just said, take a seat and the doctor will be with you shortly. I'm like, okay. So I'm sat there, and I'm not sat there like I am now. I'm kind of like this, trying to sort of hold it all together. And this is quite normal when it's really bad, because the muscle just wants to contract, and if I fight it too hard, I think I'll just end up tearing the muscle, to be honest. Now, the significant part of this visit is that I was anticipating an increase in the dosage of the injection of Dysport. It had been discussed at 2 previous sessions, and in both of those, the doctor had said, "Well, we'll wait a little bit." And at the previous, because we want to be sure that you're going to be safe with this, because it's such a powerful drug. It can be so dangerous. But this time I was thinking, we're looking at 6-9 months on the same dosage now. Haven't had any side effects. It's worked to some extent. I just need a bit more of it. So that was my mindset. And so after waiting I'm sorry, my phone's making a lot of noise. I apologise. It's not the most professional setup, this, is it? I'll just sort this out. New phones. It should be quiet now. So eventually they called me, and I'd been waiting half an hour past the actual appointment time. So normally that's no big deal, but for me, half an hour of waiting is actually quite unpleasant. I was really sore feeling tired, and you end up just getting really kind of grumpy and fractious, and not in the mood for anything other than cooperation. I really just wanted to lie down. So I was invited in, and the neurologist I saw, I recognised from my previous appointments. He's not a senior neurologist there, but he's obviously, pretty high up. And there was another one there, a lady I've not seen before, so let's just assume that she's new, or maybe she's his assistant. I'm not sure. We didn't get as far as that point. So he said, hello, take a seat, how are you, etc., etc. Shook hands, niceties. And as he started preparing everything, he didn't really ask me anything about myself, like, how are you feeling, what have your symptoms been like, and he's just like, it was more of a production line mentality, stick a needle in him and out the other way. So he started preparing the injection. He was kind of reaching for it. So I thought I'd best say what I need to say now. I said, last time we were here, we were talking about increasing my dosage this time round. And I made a point of saying it because I could see what he was doing, and also the appointment letter kind of implied I would be getting the same dosage as last time, which was 500 units. So I thought I'm going to have to mention this, otherwise it's going to get missed. So I said this, and he immediately rebutted me. Politely, he wasn't. I'm not saying he was rude at all, anything but. He said, well, we have to be very careful with this because we have to wait and see, how well your body adapts to the blah, 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 blah. And that annoyed me because I've done lots of waiting, and when you're ill and you have a chronic illness, waiting is just not something you have an appetite for. So I said, well, I've been waiting 6 months now, and I think that's enough. I feel fine. And then he started going on about, he was saying, oh, well, there might be stiffness in the muscles and this and that and so on and so forth. So he wasn't asking me questions, he was just arguing with me. He wasn't being aggressive or rude, he was just arguing with me, and I just wasn't in the mood for it at all. So I snapped a little bit. Well, I didn't snap a little bit. So I just thought, fuck this. I don't know why I did this. But I just picked up my bag, picked up my jacket, and just walked out the office. I stamped out, basically. And as I stamped out the office, as I opened the door, I just went, fuck you guys. And that was it, I was out the door. And even as I was saying it, I was thinking, it's probably a mistake. Probably not a good idea. In a second, I just thought all of this, and it occurred to me that I may now have to go and find somewhere else I can get my treatment. But I was just that's like an indicator of how stressed you can get when you have a chronic illness, and you don't feel you're being listened to. That's something I used to neglect when you would read about other people's accounts of illnesses. Nobody listens to me. The doctors don't listen. My family doesn't listen, etc., etc. I didn't realise it was that stressful. It really can get to you. And it can weigh down fast. The emotional aspect of chronic illnesses probably doesn't get as much attention as it should. Which is why I'm making this channel, by the way. This is so people who are struggling through life for one reason or another can see that they're not on their own, and they can relate to the problems I state, hopefully. Anyway, I stamped out of his office. Walked up the corridor thinking, right, what do I do now? Because I kind of need this injection. And I didn't want to go back in there and apologise at that point. So I went up to the reception desk and I said, look, I want to complain about the way I'm being treated. And obviously the staff were surprised and concerned. And she said, oh, all right, well, who's your doctor? And I gave her the name of the senior neurologist, who's not the guy I'd just spoken to and been a bit rude to. So there was a bit of, she bustled off to speak to someone, and I just kind of stood there feeling a bit empty and helpless. And I'm just kind of reading the paper and just trying to think what's going to happen next. How do I cope with this? I made a problem for myself. Anyway, this guy in scrubs stuck his head around the corner of the corridor, and looked at me, and he went, and he didn't say anything. He kind of gave me a bit of a look. He said, like, "Are you all right?" And I just went, "No, I'm not all right." So that's when things swung into action. He came up to me, and some other people came up to me, and he said, "Right, who's your doctor?" And I said, and they were talking to themselves, and they were talking to me, and they were working out who I needed to see. And somebody must have gone off to the senior neurologist and said, we've got a patient here who's really not happy. Would you mind? So they took me through to this senior neurologist. I don't want to name him because it's a bit unfair, but he's a great guy. I've seen him a few times. I've seen him once privately. And the other two neurologists who I'd just been abusive to were down there as well. And I was too angry at that point to apologise to them. So, to my shame, I didn't say anything. Well, I didn't say anything bad either, but I didn't say, "I'm sorry, I snapped at you." But they'll be there next time, and I will apologise. I'll make a point saying, "Do you remember that time I said fuck you? I'm really sorry. I was having a bad day. You weren't listening, but that's not acceptable." Anyway, so I went into the senior neurologist's office, and it was a totally different affair. He talked to me, he listened to me, he gave me the usual range of assessment tests that they have, like physical movement tests. He, looked at my posture, made me walk up and down a little bit, tested some. They have some funny little tests to determine whether this condition is a functional condition, which basically means there's no what's the term I'm looking for? Oh, I've forgotten the term. God damn it. There's no underlying cause. So it just kind of is a condition in its own right. It's not been triggered by something else. So he said, yeah, it still seems like the same sort of thing. He said he was going to refer me possibly to the DBS team, who do deep brain stimulation, which is a surgery on your brain, basically. And he said, "I'll wait a while before we do that. And, I don't think you're quite ready for it. And I'm not certain it would suit you," which I know, I understand. Then we talked about the dosage, and he said, "Right, that's fine. We'll increase your dosage." And he got it all prepared. And he increased my dosage quite significantly by about 50%. So where I was having 500 units, now I'm on 725, so not quite, but almost 50% increase in the injections. And the process of injection itself is really straightforward. It's over in a minute. You barely feel it. In fact, depending on which muscle, you don't feel it at all. You don't even notice the needle going in. And within a minute or two, it was all done. So I was back on track. He's a really good doctor. He absolutely should be the senior neurologist there. He's superb. He's got the right manner. He's professional. He listens to you. He pays attention. He's thorough, and obviously knows what the hell he's doing. You can just tell. So that was me done. And he said, "You're right. Okay, we'll see you in 3 months." So inwardly, I kind of went, "Oh, thank God they're going to let me come back again." Note to self: stop swearing at hospital staff. It's a terrible thing to do. I mean, don't abuse the staff. They all work really hard. They're all very skilled and qualified. But sometimes, I was so burnt out, and it means such a big deal getting this injection for my quality of life. But the moment somebody starts arguing with me, it really winds me up. It really winds me up, and I find it hard to control my temper. I'm going to do better than that though. So there you go. That's what happened. Is there a lesson there? I would say next time I'm going to prepare myself mentally a little bit more. There's breathing exercises you can do to bring your anxiety levels down. There's a breathing exercise called 4-7-8 breathing, which comes from the world of free diving sports. I do a lot of their exercises actually, and that's very good for bringing your anxiety down. It reduces levels of cortisol in your system, I believe, and it stimulates the vagus nerve, which is a very important nerve for relaxation and inducing the rest and digest state rather than the fight or flight state of the human brain. Feel free to go and read up on that. I might find some articles and read up on that and do a video about it at some point. Maybe, we'll see. So anyway, that's it. As I stood up, I did make a point of saying, look, I'm sorry I was a bit aggressive. I'm sorry for being rude earlier. I do appreciate what you guys do for us. And he just smiled. And it only occurred to me, like, when I went home later that day, it's like, yeah, you're in a neurology department. They probably have people saying all sorts of things in there. I mean, there are people going in there who are literally out of their minds in some cases. They'll be dealing with schizophrenics and all sorts. So they're probably quite used to getting a word of abuse now and then. They probably had to face a little bit of violence from time to time as well, which I don't think that's a line I'm ever going to cross, ever. But swearing at staff is not good. Even if it's just muttering under your breath as you walk out the room, it's not nice. Don't do it. These people don't deserve it. So, does that make this a bit of a short video? I'm waiting for the disc sport to kick in. It is starting to kick in now. It takes a few days. The first 48 hours, they recommend you don't do any exercise and you stand upright as much as possible. So 2 days just standing up without movement. Yeah, that's not going to happen, is it? But the point is, if you do like really vigorous exercise, the points in your muscles where they've injected this fluid can be disturbed by muscle flow if you're hopping up and down and doing shadow boxing or press ups, whatever it is, because your muscles are pumping away, and it can displace the buttocks or the disc support and move it to different areas of the muscle, or even into different muscles. So you got to be careful with this stuff. It's really powerful. The next few weeks will be interesting because this is the biggest dose I've taken. I'm feeling better. I'm definitely feeling better. You may notice I'm not sat like that. So there's less rotation in the neck, still quite a bit, and I'm still spasming, but it's not as strong. So now I'm kind of getting to the point where I've got my treatment regime rounded off. I've got my physio, I've got my breathing exercises, I've got my disc sports, I've got all the medication I need, and I do take quite a lot of medication for this. I've got a review appointment coming up as well. Maybe that'll get discussed, whether any improvements can be made in terms of medication. The neurologist said something about referring me for DBS. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure it will help. The reason it may not help is that DBS is basically where they put two wires into your brain and stimulate it with electrical current. But my condition is not really a fault of the brain physically. DBS is usually for Parkinson's sufferers, where I think it's the amygdala, starts to deteriorate. The brain cells literally start dying off, and your brain's ability to release dopamine decreases rapidly. And dopamine is kind of what keeps you calm and steady, amongst other things. So DBS, they don't even know why it works, but it works. DBS somehow counteracts that just by stimulating that area of the brain with electricity. In my case, this is functional neurological dystonia, which means, what's the word? I can't remember it. No underlying, whatever cause. It's not been caused by an injury or something like that, or an illness. It's not Parkinson's. It can be turned off by sensory distraction techniques. I've noticed that when I'm surfing, and that's the best place for me. Put me on a surfboard, chuck me out to sea, and I'm a lot happier, a lot more comfortable. And it can be proved by just doing little distraction tests. So a very typical one from the doctor would just be to hold out his little finger nice and straight like that and just say, touch my finger there, now touch my finger, now touch my finger, now touch my finger. And as you get distracted by chasing his finger around with your own finger like that, your body kind of straightens up and the dystonia turns itself off. So there's something going on there that isn't a physical flaw as such. It's not an injury or a disease damaging your brain. There are no lesions on the brain. I've been MRI'd. So we'll see. The DBS may not be for me. I do like the idea though of having a permanent solution that doesn't have me like hanging on for days at a time, wishing I could get treatment there and then, having to kind of organise my schedule around these appointments, and because I like to travel as much as I can, because let's face it, I'm 52. I'm not an old man, not by a long stretch. I'm in good shape, but I've only got so many laps around the field left. So I'm going to make the most of what I've got, which means I'm going to do as much surfing as I can. I'm going to go abroad as much as I can afford and as much as I can manage with work, which means I have to kind of like weave it in between my Botox sessions. Per me, what a hard life, going on holiday a lot. I know there's a lot of people out there in a much worse situation, so my heart goes out to you if you're really struggling and you've got nowhere to go. And I'll reiterate what I said at the beginning: get help. Get help from a church. There's loads of churches now doing mental health support groups. In my hometown of Blackburn, go to St Luke's Church. Go to Project 180 down in Lower Darwin. They'll look after you. Get you fit as well. So if you do a bit of Googling, you'll find some groups. You can ring up the Samaritans, but you might get an answer phone because they're very busy. Which brings us around to probably the closing points of this video, I think, which is something I've said before, is that we have an epidemic, an unacknowledged epidemic of mental health problems in the UK and probably around the world, I think. I think lots of people are struggling and suffering with anxiety and depression and loneliness and this and that and all sorts of things, and it's not getting addressed because it's hard to squeeze it into the canon of Western medication. And I'm not criticising Western medication. I'm very, very grateful for the Western medical system. It works, but it comes with caveats. And they don't always treat mental health problems in the correct way, I don't think. This is just opinion. I've met some very good mental health professionals. They're trying their best, but they don't get the funding they need. There aren't enough of them, which means we have to fix the problem ourselves by looking after each other. So if you know someone who's struggling, but it just hasn't occurred to you to get involved because maybe you don't want to make a fuss or intrude or that sort of thing, make a fuss and intrude. Go and knock on the door, ask them how they are, help them with the washing up, make them a cup of tea, have a conversation with them. These things make a really big deal to people who are struggling, especially people who are struggling and lonely. Not me, I'm a miserable hermit. I like being on my own. But there's lots of people who are just huddled in the corner of a room, falling apart right now, up and down the length of this country. I know that's happening. I've met the people it's happened to. And in some cases, all they need is somebody to walk in and say, come on, let's get you up on your feet. Let's tidy this place up. Let's open the blinds, get some fresh air in. Let's go for a walk. Let's talk. Maybe we can get you back on track. And it's amazing what a difference that can make to people. Really amazing. Some people will require much more clinical and focused treatment. But we could take the burden off mental health services just by being better communities. I think that's what I'm trying to say. We need to form better communities globally. Not one big global happy family, that's just a pipe dream. Forget that silliness. But locally, at a local level, your street, your neighbourhood, the village you're in. You should all know each other. You should all look after each other. You should talk to each other. You should ask how you're doing, how you get through your day. What does your neighbour do? Does he have a tough job? Is he working for you nowadays? Does he never speak to you? And I'm guilty of this. Do you knock on his door and say, "Hey man, how you doing? You okay?" Just sort of check in, have a quick brew and a chat. It's amazing the difference it can make. So for the few of you that watch this video, I'm averaging like 20 views a video, so never mind. I'm not setting the world on fire, but please do share these videos. They are for other people's benefit. I want to help somebody. Yeah, so think about that. Don't shy away from these people as long as you feel safe. If you don't, then that's a different matter, and you've got to use your own judgment. So help where you can. You may just want to help by making donations to a charity. That's fine. Or going to, I don't know, like a support group and pouring people cups of tea, giving them sandwiches, which I'll probably be doing in a few weeks. I'm going to go back up north. So this is me trying to do my bit. This is me finding my meaning and purpose in life. Making these videos, which I'm not always in the mood for, and I don't always have a lot to say, but I'm going to keep making them like I did today, and more has come out than I anticipated. I had a chance to explain my own feelings, and sort of indirectly apologise to the doctors I was rude to. Oh, John, stop doing that. Yeah. So, where were we? Right. Don't be rude to a doctor. Think about communities, think about the people around you, have a look at them again, see how they're doing. If they're all fine and peachy, great, leave them. That's good. If someone isn't, if somebody's stood in the corner, not talking, staring at the floor, go up and speak to them. Don't have to have a big conversation. It may be an awkward conversation, they may not be used to it. But try, and just try and make people feel included and welcomed and loved. And you will make a big difference. I promise you that, you will. Right, fairly longish video, 32 minutes is about as long as it needs to get. I'm just going to end up repeating myself. So, I'm going to wish you all a good week. I hope you're all well. If you're not well, I hope things improve and you take action. And next week, I will do a follow-up video and we'll look at my progress on this increased dosage of Dysport and see how I'm feeling. And until then, it's arrivederci, adios, do svidania, bienvenue, and I don't know what that means. And just generally goodbye. So, and my final closing comment, as always, is just remember, these are the good days. So, see ya. I'll turn it off.